Hi, I'm author and speaker Robin Mead. This video is What's Your Age Got to Do with Anything? This is the teaching video for the Be Fierce newsletter for Q2 of 2022. If you'd like to be first to see the teachings for the newsletter, go to robinmeadauthor.com and sign up. You can find this video and my other teaching videos on my YouTube channel. Find my channel by going to youtube.com/robinmeadauthor. Please subscribe so you'll be notified the next time a teaching video comes out. And if you're interested in my book, Fierce Wholeness, you can get it on Amazon. So my birthday is coming up. I'm going to be 57. And for a long time, I stayed 25. I told everybody I was 25 when they asked me how old I was. In fact, I told everybody I was 25 so often that I had to think about what my real age was. So I just didn't want to age. And I think I had just these really deep feelings of hurt because of my own pain in my childhood. And I felt like my childhood was stolen from me. And I wanted that time back. I wanted control over that time. And so I wanted to hold on to my youth as long as I could. But once it really started to heal and grow in my faith and heal from the hurts in my life, I didn't feel like I needed to hold on to my youth like that anymore. But, time certainly kept marching on. I realized I had spent so much time holding on to my youth, which I couldn't hold on to, that I hadn't made really great plans for aging. So in the book of Numbers, there's an account about 12 spies that were sent out, one from each tribe from Israel, to spy out the promised land. And the nation of Israel had been wandering around the wilderness, if you remember the story, and the land that God promised them, he had been promising them since he parted the Red Sea and brought them out of slavery in Egypt. So 10 of the spies came back and they were like, no, those people are really big and we can't do it. We're scared. Oh my gosh. And they really spread fear amongst the Israelites. But Joshua and Caleb came back with a positive report. They were like, yeah, we can take them. So God had already told the Israelites that the land was theirs. They just needed to go forth in faith with God and conquer the land. So the Israelites decided not to go based on the report of the 10 spies. And because of this disobedience, everyone in that generation perished in the wilderness, wandering around in circles for 40 years. Everyone but Joshua and Caleb. God promised each of them an inheritance because of their obedience. So Joshua became the leader of the Israelites after the death of Moses. Joshua led Israel into the promised land. Israel conquered, starting with the city of Jericho. Do you remember the story? Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, Jericho. Come on, don't leave me up here all by myself. You guys know the walls came tumbling down. You know that song. I know you do. So, and that's what happened with Joshua. And then in Joshua 14, after a few battles, we read that Caleb steps up to claim his promise because God also promised him an inheritance in the promised land because he came back with that positive report and he was all for, going to conquer what God had already promised. So now, at this point, Caleb is 85 years old. He's at 85 years old. He has faithfully waited for what God promised him. And he steps out, he claims the promise. He goes to Joshua. He's like, hey, I'm ready for the promise. I'm ready for what God promised me. I'm just as strong as I was 45 years ago. Here I am. I'm suiting up. And I'm ready to go fight for what's mine. So let's go through that again, okay? For the people in the back, right? Caleb has waited for his promise to be fulfilled for 45 years. Faithfully waited. He didn't forget, and he had faith that God didn't forget. Caleb was strong and courageous. We read that in the book of Joshua over over and over again. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. It's God's command to his people. So number 2, Caleb said he's as strong as he was 45 years earlier. Caleb kept himself ready to keep his promise, and God blessed his efforts. So we can't retain our strength all by ourselves, right? That's a supernatural thing that happened to Caleb, that his strength stayed in him that long. That was God keeping him ready because he was stepping out in faith. So number 3, at 85, I'm going to be 57, 85, Caleb suits up to go to war. So he puts all his armor on to go to war to fight for what God has promised him. And wow. God promises him this stuff. And Caleb gets up and goes after everything that God has promised him. So it's important to note here, the Israelites overall only conquered about 10% of what God promised them. 10%. With all the splendor of Israel, we read in the Old Testament about what the riches were of Solomon and the kingdoms. 10%. They left most of what God promised them unclaimed on the table. They left it on the table. So some takeaways. Number 1, as a believer, I know God has also brought me out of slavery to sin. Number 2, I know that there are promises that God has made to me, and I need to be obedient to take hold of them, regardless of my age. Number 3, I'm going to be 57. I'm thinking about retirement. I hear people my age talking about doing nothing for the rest of their lives in retirement. How many times do we hear people wondering what their lives mean when they get older? I've only got so long to live. I'm going to live for myself. So that kind of thinking is being double-minded, not trusting God's plan. I see in Caleb's life that he was faithful, and then God blessed the rest of his days on the earth. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with retiring. But the mindset that I've done all I need to do when I retire, I believe is a lie. I don't see this mindset in Scripture. Even in retiring from full-time work, I don't want to leave anything that God's promised me on the table. I don't want to leave it unclaimed. I may not work full-time, but I'm certainly going to do the works God has for me to the best of my ability, as long as I can. So how about you? How will you spend the rest of your days? What are you leaving on the table? Are you going to suit up or are you going to sit out? I don't want to leave any of what God has promised me on the table. I'm suiting up. So the first step is within your reach right now. Today is a day of grace, a great day to choose Jesus. I hope this helps you reach your next level of fierce with Jesus. God bless.